about. I've seen this movie several times. I know a lot of the people, and it still doesn't get any easier watching it. It doesn't get any less shocking hearing all of this and the stats. So yes, I kind of want to shock you the way that I was shocked, but because we do need all the help we can get. But I will have James from Black Deported Veterans update you on where we're at right now with our laws and some of our repatriated vets.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
So, I don't know if you caught in there, one of the main things that tends to trigger these deportations is a thing called aggravated felony. All right, aggravated felonies only exist in immigration law. They don't exist in criminal law. And actually, from my point of view, it's very prejudicial in its name as it is. There are Timothy McVeigh, who was convicted of 11 felonies. Charles Manson was convicted of 7 felonies. Jeffrey Dahmer of 60, even Osama bin Laden was only charged with a felony. So what is an aggravated felony? It only targets immigrants. All right. So that should tell you right off the bat that there's a focus towards getting you to believe that people that are not born here are more dangerous than anyone else. But if you look up aggravated felonies, what you will find is DUIs, failures to appear, a lot of misdemeanor crimes that they slid in. When this originally started, aggravated felonies was in 1988 when Congress came up with the term, and it was for murder, human trafficking, and trafficking in weapons of mass destruction. But then over the next 26 years, they slid these other ones in without people really paying too much of attention that they did that, and they wound up adding misdemeanors inside that. And these misdemeanors usually are things that happen to be mostly germane to those people of color or of international beginning. In July of 2021, the Biden administration announced IMVE, which is the Immigrant Military Members Veterans Initiative. And what that was in context was supposed to be, or is supposed to be, it's supposed to be a pathway to correcting, on the face, it's supposed to be a pathway to correcting this situation. To this date, since July 2021, I believe it's a little over 80.
Just under 70, I think.
Oh, just under 70?
Just got another one yesterday.
Okay, so it's about 80 people that have come back. Not 80 people that have citizenship, not 80 people that even have permanent residency, but 80 people that have come back on what's called humanitarian parole, which is an oxymoron in its own self, because there's nothing humane about having these veterans come back here with a ticking time bomb going over their heads, telling them that they got to get whatever it is they applied for done within a year's time. Or in some cases 6 months, in other cases even less than that. There is, again, for me, I have to speak from my context. There's nothing humane about this whole situation at all. When this started, our Department of Defense was not there for us. They did not protect us. They did not warn us. They didn't tell us this was coming. They knew it was coming. They signed on for it. But what they didn't tell people was that as of 1996, immigration judges could not consider your military service. Prior to that, the immigration judges could. But after 1996, they couldn't consider your service. So it didn't matter if you were, in some cases, like some guys that were like Bronze Stars. There's a couple of guys we have that have multiple Bronze Stars that were deported. They didn't care what their character of services were. So one of the reasons why I bring those things up, because I need you to understand that this was unfortunately also a target on military veterans. And so we need veterans to get involved to help us change this situation. Now, your organization like Veterans for Foreign Wars and American Legion, American GI Forum, they signed on at the national level. for the Veteran Service Recognition Act. I kinda got ahead of myself on that, but, Representative Mark Takano from California and, Senator Alex Padilla, presented the Veteran Service Recognition Act in June of last year. And in the House, it wound up passing in December in the House, but it did not pass the Senate. They have told us they're going to reintroduce those bills. Their tactic, though, is they want to wait for Republican leadership support. They want to get other Republican congressmen to sign on to this. The problem is that there's nothing that is influencing Republican leadership to put themselves out that way. Even though, as I've traveled across this country, Republicans, Democrats, independents alike, the people all say that anybody that serves should have their citizenship, should automatically be considered a citizen. As a matter of fact, most of you know that when we were in boot camp, that was one of the things that we were taught, was that we were the ultimate citizen. All right, so if we're the ultimate citizen, how do you, for any reason, allow that to happen? Well, part of that unfortunate problem is there's no unilateral process for this. Each department is given the bandwidth to do it however they want to go about doing it. And during Obama's administration, thanks to the woman you saw up here, Margaret Stock, that was on there, she convinced the Army to start doing it in boot camp. And they started doing it in boot camp, and then the Navy had followed suit. But then when 45 came in, he changed that and stopped that, nixed that, so it was no longer were people being naturalized in boot camp, which totally to me makes sense. Especially if I think if I was a non-citizen, and on the day that I graduated from boot camp, my family was able to be there to see me also become an American citizen. That's going to ingrate me more and entrench me more to be back in this country and to be back in our ideals. To me, these guys, where's David? Oh, he's they represent to me what really an understanding of being an American is about. We don't really ever think about being Americans because we're here. We live the life. We just do everything that we do. Imagine what it's like to be in another country and for years, all you're thinking is America, but you're in Kenya, you're in Somalia, you're in Uganda, and all around you is what your future really supposed to look like. There have been, up until the Biden administration made that public announcement, there wasn't a lot of hope for these guys. Unfortunately, David's not in here, but David will tell you that he happened to find Hector Barajas. One day, he happened to look online and say, put in deported veterans, just to see what was going on, and boom, there's Hector Barajas. And he reaches out to Hector. Hector tells him, keep your head up and stay alive. And David did that for 14 years. I tell him, 2 years, I would have been done. In 2 years, I'd have been Kenyan as F, okay? I asked him, and he would tell you, I wish he was here right now, he would tell you, they hold on to what they believe is the American ideal. So even though all around them, life is going on, they're struggling and holding on to their Americanism. To them, they are American whether they have the citizenship or not, because they chose to serve and adopt the American ideals. So we, as veterans, need to stand for them. When we say veteran, there's a saying that we've begun to use that, if I recognize you as mine, then I must do right by you in kind. We can't say, okay, he's a veteran, but then not pay attention to what he's going through. So one of the things that we're doing, genius of Commander Lazar, is we're getting them to join the different VSOs, to join the VFW, to join the American Legion, because each organization has consistently said that it stands for its members, it stands for veterans. So at this point, by being a member, then you have no reason not to be involved. But we don't want you to wait until a member comes into your chapter. The reason why she's doing this, and we're supposed to doing this, because we need you to get involved now. to make sure other people know, make sure the people in your community know. This is about to be a hellacious campaign season that's going around. And they're gonna come, these politicians are gonna be coming to y'all lobbying for your support. Please, make sure one of the questions you ask them is, what are you doing to help bring these deported veterans back? Make that be a conversation piece that has to be there. Because when you sit back and you do this, one of the first guys that spoke up to the President, Bill Clinton, he's responsible for this. He's the one that signed that act in. He literally segregated the military without people even knowing. Because this targeted one particular group of people. Even though we as veterans, I don't separate. When those rounds are coming down range, they're not asking whether or not you were born here. You know what I'm saying? So I don't understand why you would not have protected us. And
That's a citizen bullet, or that's an immigrant bullet, right?
You know what I'm saying?
No.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
And then when we're going through it, when you're sitting in there, you're in your foxhole, you're in the bush, whatever, you're not sitting there wondering, well, I don't know whether or not he or she was born here, they're gonna really fight enough for it. You know, it's like, we in the shit, we're in the shit.
Yeah.
So we're asking you to get in the shit with us, all right, and help these cats come back. Other than, stop trying to call me. The last thing that I want to point out before I step out of here is these wonderful people here. We find them, okay? Groups like Jan helped start groups like Deported Veterans Support House, Unified U.S. Deported Veterans.
Yes.
There's groups like Green Card Veterans, Repatriate Our Patriots, and our group, Black Deported Veterans. Along with Libby, we find them, we look for them. That's how they wind up here. Our government is not looking for them. What you see envy is lipstick on the pig. I'm telling you honestly, envy is lipstick on the pig. There were people coming back before them, not at this rate, but there were people coming back before them. But many people think that Biden began people coming back. That's not true. It's not an open doorway, they're not putting out a lot of effort. They're not even invested really any money in this. The people that work on the embed side, that work for the DHS, that work for ICE and USCIS, a lot of them volunteered, but in the first year, a lot of those people disappeared, huh? They were there and then they went on to other assignments. So there's no true commitment to this process, all right? We need the voices of you to echo what we're doing to make it happen.
Just a quick question. With the VFW, we're run by our resolutions.
Mhm.
I'd like to know, do we have a resolution on the
yes.
floor
About to bring that
that
to you.
is gonna come up through the chairs and go on to national?
Yes, it is actually resolution number 6, the Deported Veteran Resolution that our coalition helped me write and pass our district. And we are asking exactly those things, veteran service recognition. Once you become that sailor, that soldier, that's when you become a citizen. What greater loyalty do you need but loyalty to this country? But yes, we are. So if you're on the resolutions committee or, start talking about it. We're trying to get that passed. We have 6, but the 6th one is the one that we're talking about, yes. And we want to get it to national.
I just want to point out, I remember after the Timothy McVeigh, Oklahoma City bombing, our organization, our resolutions at one time, recommended that we put a stronger military force on our southern land border for national security reasons. And I was a district commander back then for Los Angeles. And I was at the Washington, D.C. office, and I asked a question. We're gonna have terrorists coming from the northern land border? Well, what about our homegrown terrorists? No one's saying anything about that.
Exactly.
But you wanna put military along the southern border? Why? And I felt that was a very racist thing to say. And I spoke out, and through our resolutions and process, we got that changed. But yeah, we need resolutions to push forward.
Yeah, I feel like they weaponized immigration and immigration acts as a support for nationalism. I have no problem with what you believe inside this country, whether you don't believe what I believe or not, because that's the beauty of being here. But the thing is not to take away from somebody else's. All right, and so when you sit back here and, one of the things we're trying to make sure of, and please, when you go forward with this, people are gonna try to bring immigration in. Immigration was just a tool that was used in this. This is a veteran issue. This is an honor issue. That's how we approaching this. Do not let them take you down the immigration path, because you go down there, it becomes divisive, nobody wants to listen. All right, you stick to the veteran issue. This was done to United States military service members. It didn't matter what gender you were, didn't matter what color you were, what your religion. There are two cats that we help that are from Canada. There are Caucasians that are involved in this. There's a cat in Bosnia. There's somebody I know in India. They're all around the country. Philippines, South Korea, everywhere. We have to, I personally believe that we have to stand for these veterans, because veterans right now, because if we allow them to go ahead and segregate at that level, and quite how they've done it for 26 years, 27 years, something else can come up. And the next thing you know, there's a thing that says that women can't be commanders anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Let's get to right, Wendy.
Or somebody like me can only go to a certain level.
Yes.
I was surprised to hear. I didn't know that if you didn't have your citizenship, you couldn't rise past an E6, right? You could be the top gun, but you can't get past E6 because you didn't have your citizenship. These things. So we're looking to push for legislation to change this situation. I want to influence, and we would like to influence Senator Padilla and whoever his supporters are, and influence Mr. Takano to not wait. That's me personally. I don't want to wait for them to get Republican support, because for the past 26 years, there have only been 6 moments when the Republican leadership, and please, if anybody in here is Republican, I am not talking about you specifically, I'm talking about at the highest level, the leadership. In 2021, 3 Republicans supported the New Way Forward Act. In 2022, December 22, 3 Republicans voted for the Veteran Service Recognition Act. In that entire time, in the entire 26 years, there's been constantly some congressman, representative, or senator. I'm sure y'all heard Senator Tammy Duckworth has done this, Shuey Garcia in Illinois, Grajaba. There's several congressmen that have brought this to pass, but there's never been legislation or a bill offered from the Republican leadership, and even contrast to whatever the Republicans are putting in. They won't come to the table. We need to help them come to the table. So that's what we're here for, to get you to join us to make this happen. And that's it.
I'll pass this around. You can just glance at it, but it's the report by Senator Duckworth, when she was speaking about deported veterans. Ooh, that's a lot to take in, right? It's a little bit of stretch, a big old stretch. Does everybody have a Don Diego sticker? Because you can't leave here without one. So let's do that. The next person that I will have come up and talk to us about a veteran who needs us right now, Jose Segovia, Mr. Jan. If you could come and tell us about Jose Segovia and how we can help.
Jose Segovia.
Yeah, you can come up here.
Yeah. I don't need this microphone. Jose Segovia, I think he's now 43 years old. But when he was in Afghanistan, he was a young guy in his 20s in Iraq. He has 2 aggravated felonies, but they're actually felonies at the state level in California. And so he was deported, even though we were trying to get him a pardon from the governor. That didn't go through, and I think he spent about 14 or 12 years in exile. Maybe I'm wrong, jail and exile combined. But a young Marine, facing deportation, who believed he was gonna get citizenship by joining the military, and but never got it. Came home with a traumatic brain injury from an explosion, roadside bomb, and at the same time came home with post-traumatic stress disorder. That's the thing I want to mention to you guys. If you look at the 22 that died in exile, one Air Force, one Navy, and a daughter of a Navy veteran, Army vet. He was first Navy, then Army. These guys are all in the combat arms. They're all in the Army and the Marine Corps. That's my experience of working on this issue for 15 years, is there's very few guys. I've never seen a guy from the Coast Guard. Never. And there is none that have been deported from the Coast Guard. But they face deportation, as Jim said, because of the change in the law in 1996. What Jim didn't tell you was that it wasn't drafted by Bill Clinton. He lost the House and the Senate in 1994. Newt Gingrich ran the House, and I forget who ran the Senate, but they came up with a bill. And Bill Clinton signed it because nobody, I believe, had ever lost a House and a Senate in a single session like that in a midterm election. So he went from running the House and the Senate and the presidency to...
It was Trent Lott.
Pardon me? Trent Lott, there you go. I just Googled it, but the old mind. But anyways, this is wrong. It truly is. And I think most of us sitting in this room agree that it is. These kids have done what less than 1% of the American people do. Put up their hand, take the oath, swear to protect this country, and then do as they're told. We all know that they can join in peacetime and find themselves in a war in a heartbeat. So these guys should be getting the same rights that we have. We've been, for 15 or 16 years now, been trying to get 8 U.S. Code 1101 Alpha 22 signed, changed. That defines what an immigrant and a veteran is, or immigrant and a foreign national. And it says foreign national is somebody who owes a higher allegiance to the United States than any other country. Well, I would think that kid right there, Jose, you moved him. Okay.
I moved him.
All right, handsome boy.
Front and center.
That's somebody who definitely has he owes a higher allegiance to this nation than any other nation. Anybody who goes in the military does. I'm amazed these guys are still patriotic.
Yeah.
I truly am. I don't know why they're not all dead from drugs and alcohol. They're pushed across the borders into Mexico and other Central American countries in a paper jumpsuit. No ID, no money, no cell phone, no nothing. In a country they haven't been to since they were children. But they came here lawfully, but they're treated like illegals or people who didn't come here lawfully. So, Governor Newsom is our only hope for this guy, along with some post-conviction relief, which the attorneys will have to work through to see if he can get it. He was just extended. He was here for 6 months. He's in the Long Beach VA under treatment for post-traumatic stress, alcohol addiction, and traumatic brain injury. So he's been there about 6 months, and he'll be there maybe another year, getting what he needs, the help. So in that case, this was a humanitarian parole, because this kid was spiraling down. He was going to end up as one of the other dead. So if you think this is wrong, do call your congressman, do call the governor, do call your United States senator, and anybody else that you can talk to at the state level, at your city level, or whatever. Thank you for your time.
And I think I failed to mention, Mr. Gentleman is a Marine.
Hoorah.
And I know I would hear this after this session. We forget it. But since we were talking about pardons, if I could have our two immigrant defender lawyers come up here and give us a little brief on some of the things that they do and how they've been helping our veterans. And following that, we'll have PCLU, and then we will introduce you to David that we were talking about earlier.
Hi everyone. So
You guys can come by the podium and speak. Yeah.
I want to clear up that we are not IMVETs. We are
Immigrant defenders. Yes.
But we are often called IMDEF, so sometimes those two names get
MDEV, yeah.
are not part of the government. We are a nonprofit. We work in a lot of immigration areas, but Francini and I particularly work in post-conviction relief. California has a really good law called 1473.7 that was actually, it's just a state law, just in California, but it allows people to go back to their previous convictions if they were not warned or did not understand that their conviction carries immigration consequences. And as James said, not every aggravated felony is a felony. Sometimes it's a misdemeanor nationwide. California has done a really good job in pushing for immigrants in trying to make it safer. So a misdemeanor in California can't be more than 364 days. In terms of an aggravated felony, any crime of violence, any crime having to do with drugs with more than a year sentence is an aggravated felony. So that could be assault is one that we see very often, like somebody got in a fight, and the one who's not a citizen tends to be the one who loses, regardless of who started it, right? We've been able to get post-conviction relief for a few veterans. It makes the world of a difference, especially if they serve during a time of conflict, because that means they're eligible for naturalization, regardless of what other crimes they may have committed, as long as there's no aggravated felonies. That's not the case for all of our vets. Some of them have federal convictions, which need like a presidential pardon or some sort of habeas, or it's a really hard road. So things like the legislation are really, really important for our work. And as James said, we see veterans of all walks of life, young, older, like from all over the world. So it's a huge issue.
Yeah, and we are very lucky and blessed to be able to work as a community. And as a matter of fact, Jose is my client, and we as a team filed his humanitarian parole, so he was able to cross, but still he's here for only 6 months, and now we applied for an extension. We're waiting for their decision, but we're so proud of him. He has been treating himself, taking his recovery very, very seriously, and yeah, we are hoping that we're gonna have a positive outcome for his PCR, because we're working. He has 4 convictions that we're hoping to vacate, and we are working very hard to do that.
Okay.
Let me say something about Jose. I read his trial transcripts from the courts in Los Angeles. He had 2 different actions. And he tried to use the affirmative defense that he was in the military, had post-traumatic stress disorder, and traumatic brain injury. California law allows you to use that as an affirmative defense. But the jury never heard anything about his military service or about his PTSD or about his traumatic brain injury or that he went to war for this country, because the judge wouldn't allow it. Just shut it down. Could not use that as a defense. I think I would have stood up in front of the jury and screamed and yelled every time they came in.
Who was the judge?
So,
Go ahead.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that recently that if there is a military veteran, that there is a special court that's supposed to be allowed for military veterans when it's supposed to be on that. So in situations like that, is that something that we're working on especially for our veterans who are not U.S. naturally born citizens? Why haven't they been allowed to be transferred to those courts as well? Because I've heard quite a few like former Marines and stuff that they got into a bar fight and all that, and as soon as they go to the judge, they hear their prior service, their case gets transferred over to this other court. So what are we doing? I don't not saying, but like what that y'all haven't tried it, but what is the steps that we're trying to get so we like for himself to where he gets that same right to be able to get that case moved to that military section, because that will fend off, put ice in the Bat Bay, because you know, he has that service. So I don't think that's something a lot of people don't even know. I didn't know about that until a couple of years ago myself. So I just think that a lot of people don't know that. So that should be something that we should be working on throughout the other posts to let them know that as well.
So one thing that, you know, the bad part about this is there's so many systems to go through, right? So, we work in criminal court. We're not, we don't do like the cases per se, but we do the backside. So we get to see the file as it's happened. I haven't heard of alternative courts. I know LA does have mental health courts, so if there's a mental health issue, it might get referred there. But they do tend to go through the normal criminal court. That might have been an evidentiary issue, but it is true that like most of our clients don't even go through trial. They do plea agreements, right?
Mhm.
Because when you're, and that's the case nationwide, most people, you don't really see trials. You see them on the TV a lot, but 90%, the first thing they tell you in law school is like 90% of cases, criminal cases, plea agreement. And obviously if you're someone that has a family outside that has like a job to keep, if a public defender or private criminal attorney, defense attorney comes and tells you, hey, the DA is only agreeing to give you 30 days jail if you say plead guilty or nolo contendere to this charge. But if you go to trial, you're facing 16 years or whatever, or you're facing a year. Obviously someone is going to say like, I need to see my family. Now, national and state law says that that attorney, your defense attorney, has to warn you, hey, this charge carries this immigration sentence. And with aggravated felonies, as James said, it's not that the judge can't consider military service, it's that the judge gets that discretion taken away when certain immigration charges are made. So aggravated felony is one of them. But one thing that I would encourage you all to do also in local state politics, local county politics, is talk to your DAs about this. LA has a directive that's been really great for us in getting post-conviction relief. The directive, Gascon has said that any DA has to consider military service when offering a plea deal. So they have to consider the immigration consequences in order to give that deal. That's not something all counties have. We work in San Bernardino, we work in Madera, we work all over the state, and not every county has that, and it can be very unhelpful. Because it is something to consider, especially for a military veteran who does not have the same access to treatment for PTSD or other military injuries outside of this country. But it is, I haven't heard of those courts, but if you want to get involved with that part of it, just encourage DAs to have a policy on post-conviction relief, on the plea agreements for military veterans.
Okay,
He's talking about Veterans Diversion Treatment Courts.
Yeah, military
that
diversion.
are modeled on the drug treatment courts.
yes.
That's a 2-year process. The veteran goes in before a judge. We've got a court in San Diego that we stood up, but it's all misdemeanors. Although the first guy they brought through was an E5 from Iraq with a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart, who, redheaded guy, Irish probably or whatever, but he had pulled off a bank robbery with a gun. Did a military bank robbery all by himself. He had it in and out quickly and then got in the taxi cab. Went to the liquor store and went to a dope dealer. Sitting in his living room on the floor, counting his money, snorting whatever, and drinking when they kicked the door in. That guy was brought in, he was the first guy in San Diego. That's a heavy crime, bank robbery. But he got that diversion treatment through that court. Buffalo and Oklahoma City were first and second. There's less than 200, I believe, across the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But find out if you got a Veterans Diversion Treatment Court in your county or your city, and if you don't, start asking if you can set them up. Go see the guy that does the drug diversion courts and ask him about it. That's all.
I know you got a question.
They have a veterans court
Yeah.
in Kingman, Arizona,
Oh, yeah?
and it's a diversionary
That's good to know.
related to their veterans' history.
Good, okay.
And they do put them in programs, and they're starting up from Kingman, Arizona, all the way into Phoenix, and then into New Mexico. This friend of mine's the one behind some of this, and he's the one that gave me that information. And I asked him, how's it been working? He says, very positive. So long as they're veterans and they have their history, they can confirm it through their lawyers. They help them post conviction. Yeah.
Post conviction release.
I've done some research into that Veterans Treatment Court, and we have them approximately about 37 states. And in California, we have 50% of the counties have a Veterans Treatment Court, but each one operates individually. There's no systematic approach with having.
Again.
And in our county in San Bernardino, our Assemblywoman, Eloise Reyes, passed a bill to the Assembly that made it mandatory for the officials in the prisons to ask each member that comes through if they're veterans or not. But they're still not doing it. So there's still a lot of problems that need to be corrected. I worked with her office for over a year and a half trying to create a bill that would actually do a couple of things to make it mandatory. They have a Form 100, which is an optional form, and very few of the counties are using it. But that form actually is given to every person that comes through, and they have to sign off, yes, I'm better or not. And if they are a veteran, it already dictates what all their rights are under the Veterans Treatment Court. So there's still a lot of problems in there.
Thank you. Go
Okay,
ahead,
so,
please. Thank you.
one way to address this is again, the Veteran Service Recognition Act. One of the tenets of that is to ensure that if any military person comes into contact with ICE, ICE has to automatically refer them to a special panel that they're looking to put together with this act, to a special panel, and then that panel would decide whether or not this person needed to go, what passes. So basically, it's Veterans Court, but at a federal level. That's one of the other good reasons or important reasons to support the Veterans Service Recognition Act. So please push Senator Padilla and Mr. Takano to reintroduce that, and let them know if they reintroduce it, we will help sell it. But if they just keep it back there, it's going to get buried under all the histrionics that's about to happen with the trials and campaigns and everything that's going on. We're going to get buried. So we need to get started on this right now. Not let's talk about it in 2 months, or let's talk about it at our next conference or our next meeting. When y'all leave from here, please go at least tell somebody else about this and start doing something at your chapters.
Do they have phone numbers that we can send out?
To who?
Padilla and them?
Yes, I'll give you those.
You have them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get the.
I will
Thank
say
you.
it's an awkward opening line at like reunions and socials and stuff, but every time that I do tell people about military veterans getting deported, I get a shocked face from the person on the other side, regardless of their walk of life. So, just, I'm not saying go out there and suddenly walk into your house and tell your family, did you know veterans get deported? But do try to spread the word, because I think it's regardless of how you feel about veterans or immigration, there's like a sense of dishonor in deporting people who have offered to do a huge sacrifice for the country. But also, in my experience, a lot of the people, especially our older clients, tend to be people who joined the military to help out their families, because they were the first ones in their families to get an education here, or the first ones to grow up here. And it's just it's a good way for them to honor their country, but when they come back with problems or anything, and even sometimes just from training problems, from being away from home or anything like that, it's a really sad thing to see them suddenly thrown away.
Are there some perimeters where you say, hey, you know what? I don't think I can help you. Let's say if they committed some serious felony.
We do have internally we have a referral program. So one thing, we'll leave some business cards also, and I know John too. Not parameters for us, personally or even institutionally, but just in terms of what can be done for legally and in immigration. We've definitely had some very serious referrals for murder and things like that just legally courts post-conviction relief wouldn't be feasible. But for humanitarian parole, for example, we've had some MVETS has, I will say that in the rest of our immigration work, we feel very lucky for MVETS. It is not the best, but it is nice having someone to talk to, because nowhere else in our other work do we have someone to be like, hey, why isn't this happening? But in humanitarian parole, they are kind of tough on crimes of domestic violence, crimes of anything having to do with violence or trafficking, drug trafficking. And part of our job is then making them understand, like, hey, this person, when they're trained to sort of react in defense, because that's what they were trained for so long, and then they have all these other problems, like, yeah, some violent crimes are going to happen. So they're not our parameters, but we are working under the parameters of immigration and criminal courts.
Well, a lot of this is education, right? Because if you go to my area, which is Lakeside, California, I do get the, well, they did the crime, so, oh well. But they have no idea if it was because they stole some gum and, you know, the lady was pissed off and punched them in the face or whatever, you know, whatever. So really, not only just talking about it, but telling them the statistics, right? He got deported because of this little thing, not because he killed so-and-so, you know? And so that's where we have to start the conversation. If not, people are like, oh, well, he did it, Wendy, too bad. I'm like,
Yeah, and we have a lot of clients with DUI, substance abuse, and all the convictions, all the charges were after service. Before that, they're clean and they're just living their life. So there is a disconnect from people, and that we need to educate them.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, aside from contacting Senator Padilla or Congressman Tacano, which, you know, you're gonna call the office, and they're both very good people, and I'm sure they wanna help, but.
Do they get back to you?
Well, they'll probably get back to you, their office will, but, is there anything closer to the grassroots, I guess, if you will, that, you know, we can help as far as our post goes?
Hi, I'm Marty Ainley, I'm the state commander.
Yes.
Right, currently, and then Tim Bryan will take over on Saturday. My best suggestion for other posts in the state is to get behind Don Diego's post, whether it be standing there with your votes, or standing there with your voice, or monetary donations that'll help them assist their veterans when we get them back from the deported area that they're from. Okay, this is something near and dear to my heart because I served 30 years and I worked with a lot of veterans that were citizens of another country, and next thing I know, they're deported. Okay, one of the proudest moments I had while I was on active duty also was standing in a Point Mugu large military aircraft hangar and a federal judge swearing in over 300 foreign nationals as U.S. citizens to our country because they were still serving. They were active duty at the time. So
Before they deployed.
no, they had already deployed, but they were still on active duty. But I'm just saying that one of the best things that George Bush did as a president was speed that process up. We need to educate our public on where our veterans are that served our country and raised their right hand and said, I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's to be made by an American citizen. And if you take that oath, you should automatically become after your first enlistment you've done honorably, you should automatically become a citizen. Shouldn't have to fill out any paperwork. Okay, you've already had your background check done when you join the military. Okay, all of that good stuff. But first thing I like to say is thank you for coming out and sitting in this class. I can let you know that in March when I was in DC with Tacano and Padilla, it was specifically brought up, those bills, to say, get behind them again, let's put them back through, and it's not stopped until they get passed. So, and Congressman Tacano did say, I support that, and I will get to it. So, I just want to personally thank all of you for being here, because it's very important what Don Diego does as a post. They're getting support from Lakeside, they're getting support from the San Diego brothers and sisters. Now it's time to get a statewide support.
They'll be getting some support from VFW Post 1944.
Hoorah.
Support from Santee.
That's what's up, that's what's up.
I overheard you saying that the VFW is going to be holding these classes again next year?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's fantastic. So the VFW here in California is standing behind it?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm up until Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm the state commander, and you got Tim's file? So the next state commander is gonna be in support of this as well. I don't see any state commander in the future being against this push.
this question goes to San Diego, Commander.
Hmm?
What do you need from organizations like mine, with
Oh.
the Mexican ancestry?
Actually, we do need all the grassroots. We need you guys to tell everybody. That's what I always talk about. But I'll tell you what our post does. Like our post, when they come home, we sponsor 3 days of lodging, 3 days of clothes, and 3 days of food. Now that's what we do, just our post. And our district is now helping us, and so we've been able to help even more. We've been able to take meals to Tijuana, take clothes and shirts and socks, toiletries, you know, that we've gotten from Ramona, Lakeside, you know. So that's our district. And we have how many in California?
17.
Can you imagine what we can do? Legislation, find lawyers that want to do pro bono, fundraising, going to visit our brothers and sisters, even the ones that just rally by Tijuana because we're close. They rally there, and that's why a lot of times a lot of people think it's just Hispanics, but there's so much we can do. But advocacy, like letting everybody know.
Wait a minute, where are you from, sir?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I said. That's where a lot of people think.
I've been to Kenya.
Yes.
Beautiful country.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely
Yes.
beautiful country, and this young man
This
from
is
Kenya,
Kenya.
and he served our nation.
Yeah.
We're
So here he
Patriot
is. And this is the success that Don Diego's doing. We're bringing all of our fellow servicemen and women back. So whatever you can do to support them, maybe be there at the border when their success is doing, monetary value, donations, or send a package that has toiletries in it with all new toiletries, toothbrushes, toothpaste, shampoo, or whatever. You know, like right here. You're getting all that stuff every day in your room when you stay for the convention. Collect that all up.
Yeah.
Send it to Don Diego, and they can put the use to it.
Unused, you guys.
Yeah, don't send any used soap, please. But
Half a bottle of shampoo.
leave it to the sailor back there.
Gotta be a sailor, a chief.
Chief Petty Officer.
Formula over here, we gotta stay hydrated.
So, again, my whole role to come in was to say thank you for being here to listen to this presentation. Thank you to our lawyers and to do this pro bono. Thank you. But if you want to rally around Don Diego, send him those unused toiletries. Thank you for unused words. And maybe a post donation that says so they can put it in a restricted fund to be used. Maybe they can increase that from 3 nights to 4 nights. Maybe they can increase it from 4 nights to a week. We could do this all on our own, hold one fundraiser just for that in your post. Who knows how much money that could be? A lot of our active duty and a lot of our veterans do not know this plight. You know, they don't know what's going on at the border and with immigration. Had I known that I had a fellow person from Kenya, after I've been to that beautiful Christian country that they all speak English in, it's just, I would have been down there at the border stomping my foot, going, wait a minute, this is wrong. So, and we have a lot of causes in our VFW to look at, but this is one that's under reported as we say. We have National Home, we have all these other things. Now it's time for California to get behind our deported veterans. Thank you, Libby, for the moment.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, you were asking, you guys were asking what to do. As a suggestion, after seeing this, I would suggest that you go back to your district commanders and tell them you want one of these presentations for your chapter, so that Libby can come there and educate. So you're not just regurgitating and trying to remember what you heard here. You know, that film is, we have the license to use that film. To go there so we can come, or she can go to your district and present this.
We come as a unit, so you will get more than one.
As a matter of fact, it was our incoming district commander that notified me about the meeting, that was in correlation with the American Legion, getting involved with this.
And see, I'm a member of American Legion, that's what we're doing.
I didn't get a chance to meet you guys. I was actually doing a CMP exam.
Who are you?
PTSD. My name is David again.
Yes.
Yes, I'm a formerly deported U.S. veteran. I just got back September of last year. And
David, tell us how you felt when the VFW was there for you. Like you came and saw. I went to one swearing in of citizenship, and I get chills thinking about the moment. Two of the guys came back, and we went to the downtown. We went downtown. So share with us that feeling when you saw the community there for you.
speaking of VFW, Levier and James Smith, my situation is different. TJs, once they get their parole letters, they just walk across.
Right.
Being in Africa, Jamaica, UK, you name it, Asia, Middle East, Australia, you have to buy a ticket. You have to go to an embassy, and they have their own protocol. So you just don't walk in. You have to have an appointment. Now that process is different. DHS have to coordinate with the embassy. They have to get your paperwork right. They have to get your appointment right. They have to get your flight out of your country right. Because they look for like an opening for you to fly out. So it's different. And the more you stay, you know, we're going through a lot at that point in time. We have three gentlemen in Haiti right now. They're in a hostile environment. Some are sick, had a stroke, one of them had a stroke. We can't do anything for them. So my situation was also different. I had no work for quite a long time, since September 2001. So 2001 till September 2022. And who was to help me? Affiliated friends and deported veteran organizations, who were not, you know, in the limelight at that point in time, because they're trying to speak to organizations, but they don't get the real picture of actually what's going on. So people who I was able to communicate with, stay in touch with, those are the people who understood me. So I was able to meet Levier, you know, and Hola Energy and stuff. She worked out a GoFundMe for me for my flight ticket.
Or post.
No, that's
Post. Sorry.
It's okay.
And these are things that I didn't know how. I didn't have money to buy a ticket, and the timeline was like, hey, you need to get a ticket for this appointment to take place. So the obstacles, the challenges I went through, without the support of Levier, James, other individuals that are not here, I would still be struggling to get a ticket. And I have family. My son just got back. He's in North Carolina right now, but I'm trying to acquaint with him soon. I couldn't support them. That led to my divorce at one point. So it's affecting families, your health, mental health. And the only way the only people the politicians can reach to, unfortunately, is the people just across the border, not the other deported veterans globally. And just coming out from my CMP exam, this is not my first one, this is my second one for PTSD. They don't recognize deported veterans.
You just had that test in the room, right?
Yes.
While we were speaking, he was having his CMP.
So, as presumptive service connection, they do recognize, when you talk about, if you say you were probably a POW, you served in the veteran period, the Vietnam era, they will recognize that. But if you say you're deported, it's gonna prolong you getting your PTSD, because it's not in the system. It's not structured. It's not structured in the application forms for PTSD. So if we can get the government to acknowledge deported veterans, as a presumptive service connection, that would make it easy for whoever the lawyers or the doctors, when they do the PTSD, to recognize deported veterans as a disability situation for PTSD. Because once you mention you're deported, and that's the reason why you got PTSD, it stretches your claim. So you end up waiting probably another 6 months.
Yeah, length of time.
But don't worry, you have your VFW family.
Yeah.
So that is another thing. When you speak to your Congress people, your Senate, that is, because the VA are not here, they will not tell you this thing. Because they'll tell you, oh yeah, you need to go apply for your PTSD, but they don't recognize deported veterans. So that's another thing. And transitioning, we've been gone for 14, 20 years, and we're coming back to the same position again, trying to get your claims and then wait for another 6 months, 1 year, or more.
With the time bomb ticking over here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They still have that 12
And
months.
for me, because I don't have any relatives in the States, so I need to start from scratch, get my claims, get into the housing program, who also did not identify deported veterans. They don't recognize it. So it has to be in the forms, it has to be in the policies for everything to go ticking right. Because you say deported veterans, they're like, yeah, we don't know that. It has to come from DC, saying, hey, now we recognize deported veterans, it's in the policy, please try to expedite this.
We're going there, we're going.
So that's another thing, because my principle is, as a deported veteran, I'm here, I'm happy to be back home, but I should be able to help other deported veterans who are not here. So we should play like ambassadors to deported veterans. Anything we get, we should be able to share with organizations so they can help deported veterans. Because not all of them are coming through TJ. Some of them are coming through Texas, some of them Florida, New York, yeah. So we should be able to give that information to you guys and, get with the right channels and just make it happen. Even the lawyers
Hold on.
ACLU?
Okay,
It's been
please, because they're underselling this story. Okay, first of all, and this is the magic of how this family comes together. David got his paperwork, and then there was an election getting ready to go on there, and David was worried that he wasn't going to be able to get out before that election and that he might get stuck. So because Kenya was having a problem with Europe, David could only fly through Turkey to come back. So even though we were able to find tickets for $800, $1,000, because he had to fly through Turkey, it was $2,400, $2,500. We had a GoFundMe, but at that time, it only got about like, I think it was about 800 or 900 at that time. And Hector Lopez from Unified U.S. Deported Veterans, I'm talking to him about it, and he goes, well, when he gets back, why don't you talk to Libby about getting him into the program? I was like, yeah, I guess I could take care of that. I just had to figure out the best, but yeah, let me go and call her. So I called her, hey, what's up, Liv? He's like, what's up? And I said, hey, listen, can David be a part of your mentorship program? And she goes, yeah, when's he coming back? I was like, no, we got to figure that out because we got to get his ticket. She goes, I'm headed down to the post. I'll give you a call. I'm getting ready to go hang with my grandson. This is our afternoon to go hang out. This is an hour later. I get a text that says, put this information on a flyer and then get this back to me. This is going to this congresswoman. The information was for a fundraiser that she picked 3 days to do on Friday, Sunday, and that Wednesday. This is from a 5-minute conversation. She and Nat jumped in and did all that. All I asked was, could he be a part of that? So I know VFW, y'all got some magic in them. Alright? You know, when I came down for the fundraiser, she didn't just post it, she worked it. I put him on, I had him, I was like, dude, look what she's doing for you. She took my phone and she went through everybody in the club, walked down the street. I swear, this is no lie, walked down the street with the phone going, this is one of our veterans, he's deported to Kenya. She put in the work. So she put the bar up there for y'all. All right, so please, we don't want just likes on this. We want you involved in this and making it happen. I just want to make sure, don't keep the store. And she raised $1,200, and that's how we were able to put him on the plane and get him back here.
And we are from ACLU.
Hi everyone, won't keep you long, partly because I can't follow James. I'm John Contreras, I'm a law fellow with the ACLU of Southern California, which is just to say I'm in my first year of practice. Specifically working to repatriate deported veterans, and you've heard a lot about what this work looks like already, so just wanted to plug in additional notes. One, I want to bring up that point of they did the crime. I think that's such a useful talking point, because deported veterans did the crime and they did the time. They served their sentence and then they were doubly punished for the rest of their lives with deportation. And I think knowing that point changes the whole game. The second is I really want to thank all of you for the work you have done, the work you will do. This is such a unique space within the law, within immigration, within everything. Happy stories in immigration. I often join calls just to say, like, good news. First time in years. And that is a testament to the power of veterans. No one goes to bat as fiercely for one another as you all do. And that's why every time we get someone back, they continue that momentum, and it's just building and building, and it's magical. I'm getting choked up. You see how serious I look? I'm getting choked up. So thank you, and I'm excited for you to join. On the point of what other work can you do? Definitely building out the support of the other VFW posts, absolutely. I would add to that, building that support outside of the state as well, in other states. To touch on that in a couple of ways, I'm based out of LA, but all of my clients, I think, aren't in California. I don't do post-conviction relief, and that's because in most states that's not an option. So the only option for most of the deported veterans I work with is ask me nice to play nice. That's tough.
Maybe we're about to get miles on airplanes, fly you out to different states.
We need a national, we need a change in law. There's no one legal path to repatriating deported veterans. I basically play chess with I look through hundreds of pages of records and try to piece together, and for a lot of veterans, the best we can do is ask ICE to play nice. And it's worked in some, and that's magical, and again, a testament to the work that you all have done, but for a lot of people, they're just in limbo. And even then, without post-conviction relief, they can't naturalize, they can't become citizens. They can still be deported for the same convictions decades ago. In addition, on the VFW support, David's story is actually a great example. What you will do is plug in the day-to-day support, the support that they need to just live. Deported veterans are coming back and starting over their lives for a third time. That's crazy. They can't even apply to get employment authorization until they're back. So they have to wait months before they can even apply for a job. And we've unfortunately seen some veterans come back and they're homeless because they're starting over. So that support that has come from you all, I'm sorry to just pass the buck. Please keep us in the loop how we can, but that's a really serious need. The last one, in the dramatic revelation, I feel like James is gonna come punch me in a second. So the decision to hold off on reintroducing the Veteran Service Recognition Act is actually from the ACLU. In fact, we begged Takano, I'm sorry, James, you look so disappointed. Let me tell you what. Which isn't to say that you join my side, but Takano wants to reintroduce the bill, as does Padilla. This is being recorded. It's not going to pass right now. The Republican support just isn't there. It didn't pass the first time. So what we're doing is going through VFWs. That's partly why we want you to talk to others in other states too, because you hold a lot of power. Republicans don't want to talk to ACLU. I'm not gonna be there, I'm not the one that's gonna start that conversation. So to get them to sign on, it's gonna take the veterans, it's gonna take the VSOs, VFW, American Legion, etc. So, which isn't to say don't reach out to Takano or Padilla, absolutely, but just know that I promised them that I would let them know. That was we begged them, basically. And the plan is to introduce it in early fall, once there's hopefully more Republican support, but I just, that's not on them. I just needed to clarify. Not necessarily on me either. I think you can blame Jenny Pascarella more than me.
Oh, wow. And that's recorded, that's recorded.
No, but
So you wanna make it an election issue?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing for your
Yeah,
deported
that's right,
parents?
that's okay. When they
No,
come
that's
around
not their
asking,
goal.
do ask.
down the line, yes,
Politics
but right
before I
now,
see it.
we're trying to get this before the next election cycle. It would be introduced at the beginning of the next Congress. We're talking to some like lobbying expert that works nationally, and she has like, she's super smart, she mapped out this whole timeline. So, I guess my ask for my organization is, yes, put that pressure, but like, put it externally in other states, other posts outside of the states, and know that the plan is for it to come in a couple of months. So, you know, I don't know what that looks like as far as pressuring Takano or Padilla's office. They're on it, they want to introduce it. It was, again, Jenny Pascarella.
So should we pressure your office?
You're her representative, so we're gonna meet you out in the hallway.
Thank you for your honesty, truly, and sharing that with us, because you didn't have to share that, and you did, so thanks.
Well, you guys looked at 8 US Code
We'd rather know the
1101 Alpha 22?
Sorry, what was the?
US Code 1101 Alpha 22, have you looked at it?
I don't think so.
Ask Jenny about it. She knows about it. 8 US Code 1101 Alpha 22 with a single 2-sentence amendment to that, because it defines what is a national and what is a citizen. If these guys, at the time they enlist, and stood in front of that flag and took the enlistment, put on the uniform, that's the moment they should become a US national. That's a non-deportable class. They don't have to be citizens unless they want to, but from what I've seen, a lot of vets, and I mean from Vietnam forward, kind of hard to go back to a government institution and believe in them after you've left the military. You jumped over the fence and the junkyard dog bit you, not gonna jump over again. So that's why they don't find their way to the VA, that's why they don't find their place, a lot of places, you know, they just don't like the system. So it's up to us, but if we had 8 US Code 1101 22 amended, that would stop the deportation from this point forward of veterans, because they would be a protected class. I heard, was it Marty or Martin who was here a few months ago?
Yes, Commander Yingling, VFW,
Right.
California.
Right now, they're doing citizenship swearing in boot camp. Obama did it, and it was done, and so did George Bush, in Iraq and Afghanistan, standing inside of Saddam Hussein's castles and stuff, hundreds of them.
Yep, I've seen it.
So it's by the president. Each presidential administration is different and will do what they wish to do. Biden has stood up that envy committee. Doesn't mean the next president, if he loses the election, will do it. So what Takano's waiting for is hopefully the House to change again to Democrats. Because there was 213 people who voted for that law, 3 Republicans and 200 Democrats, and it made it through the House. McConnell wouldn't let it out of committee. So the 217th Congress died, now we're in the 218th. We're looking at the 219th, but at the same time, we've got a lot of work to do with each other, our friends and our sphere of influence is right here in the United States. So make your voices heard. Pick up the phone if you have any contact with your Congress people or your senator. Call them, talk to them. Citizenship can be something they can acquire later. In fact, Martin said at the end of their enlistment. So the citizenship issue is not clear. People want to wait till their enlistment's over. Some want to wait until they've gone through boot camp and ITR. But from my perspective, it's U.S. nationals first, and then they can get their citizenship if they wish it.
Thank you. So I did pass out the QR code, that has the resolution, and it does speak a little bit on what, Jan was talking about, for today. Do you guys have any more questions of us? Thank you so much for all your attention.
Also, just before you guys take off, I also want to, again, I know she already recognized, Anthony Noriega, over there. LULAC is beginning a greater presence, on this issue. They'll be making a national announcement, in July.
Thank you, everybody. So what you can do this tell everybody, did you hear about deported veterans? You see how many of us are in here, right? So that's a lot of work. So I'm here the whole convention, and I'm loud, so every time I pass by, I hear everybody talk about deported veterans.
We got bad hearing.
You'll know it's lit. Anytime.
Are you the same one as hers, or?
No, but, no, I just joined the American Legion.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm over there. Nice. Nice. Awesome.
20 minutes up the road, right up the clock.
We're in the same building.
Check it out. Yes, yes. Awesome, yeah. I'm gonna have that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
And you didn't let it do it time on one, and then you got out there. That is
Yeah, cause, I mean, we'll come out, do a answer any questions and stuff, and then there's other materials. There's a text message, with your information here, I'm assuming so there's 5 individuals to kind of help you show some what's going on. Yeah, I'm definitely.
Oh, you know what? You just. I was gonna say, you know what? Well, help me. You guys can put one of these murals up.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Oh, yeah, you're down. Okay, that's me.
Look at that.
Down Diego.
I didn't find a put them somewhere. Oh, yeah. We have this on our wall. We have this on our wall.
I'll come out there.
Thank you for coming down. We got the whole rest of the convention to keep talking.
So, I mean, if you post something, we can get you these
Okay, yeah.
and stuff, and but I mean, when you guys contact the lady, yeah.
Yes. I will.
I put tape on that side, so I'm trying to roll. Tape it.
Oh, God, you all genius. You must have been Marine in a different life.
He says, Eddie, you know what? I'll see you down there, blah, blah, blah. He was a service rep for 25 years.
But it is, I mean, it's like, that's when we started, I was learning. I had a brief like this, and I put that on the wall outside of our post.
He says, but I
We had a press conference with the judges, I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about, but they're reporters and they're veterans, and I know how to help them. So we had, I think it was Robert, Zavar, and Jan, who was right there, and they came and they kind of spoke for me. And having that on the wall is, like, the talk, like, it opens all the conversation. And then, if you ever looked at the Valenzuela brothers, the Marines. Right now, Manny, they traveled around the United States in their RV, and they had a portable one. We went with that. Then we have another one that shows the ones that have passed. Yes.
When answering questions.
They said if we got injured or
Yeah.
hurt or something there,
I know.
Geneva Convention wasn't gonna cover it.
That's what I was like, if we had a press conference, I was like, I
Yeah,
can't
that's
get
how the
it.
word was over there when we were there.
Oh, yeah.
They said this operation is going to access it going into Cambodia now. Then you're gonna go up
So
to
can we
Dallas,
leave here?
and then maybe you'll go back into America and come back down.
So you only do one time?
There's no one taking it through.
Yeah, everybody was like,
And he just went,
We had to do a lot of running because we were ambushed, there was only like 9 of us.
He's got a letter.
Going into these operations, they train you to do all this stuff, right?
But I guess
You
him
have
and
to go,
his brother.
then after we get out, then all the police departments want you
I
to
guess
join
you
them.
should look up, it's called American Exile.
Oh, yeah, they say,
Okay.
you know,
Like, we are to try to get this.
Video.
So we gotta get this.
take a couple tests, maybe.
Do you want